Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Thursday, June 30th, in the locker room for the Guiding Light 70th anniversary. Guiding Light premiered on television on June 30th, 1952. And today we're going to take a look back with three of my former colleagues and fans of the show. Joining me are a former head writer for Guiding Light, a New York Times bestselling author, the co-executive producer of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and a former Guiding Light publicist. You may know me. Jill Lorie Hurst, Danielle Paige, Brett Staneart, and I are going to share our memories and personal stories of what prompted us to start watching Guiding Light and how lucky we all were to get a job for one of our daytime dramas. We hope all of you will share your favorite memories, ask questions in the chat today as we celebrate all things Springfield. Please welcome to the locker room my friends, Danielle Paige, Brett Staneart, and Jill Lorie Hurst. Hello.
Nice intro.
Thank you. You know, I think we have a lot of people here today watching.
Well, there are a lot of fans out there.
We do have a lot of fans. Yeah. We do have a lot of fans. And, you know, I wasn't kidding when I did say how lucky we all were to get a job working on our favorite show.
Crazy luck.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Really.
Some of us more than others.
100%. Is there a storyline? I know some, for me, like my mother was watching and it was introduced, and there are storylines that drew me in for sure. For you all, a storyline, an actor that truly, sucked you in, Danielle?
When I was a little kid, I fell in love with the four, with Rick and Mindy, and I actually wrote a fan letter to Michael O'Leary when I was like 5 years old, and I also wrote one to Hillary, and both Michael did not write back. I think I've told this before.
Oh, shocking!
But I got a picture signed by the actress, and I was so smitten. And
Marcia Clark.
Yes. Clark. And she wrote a little note. I wish I had it. I can't find it, but I had no idea that would be part of my life story. I love the show. My grandparents, my grandmother watched it. My mom watched it. My sister watched it. I just was smitten from the time I was 5, and I kept watching it. And it was. I can't believe I ended up working it there. It was just such a dream come true that I wasn't even pursuing. I took an internship in college and fell in love. I wanted to be a journalist, and it changed my entire life.
We kept her.
And we kept her. I mean, it's so interesting, Danielle, you say 5 years old, because, I'm sure it was on in my house at 5 years old. And I know, like, I have memories of Ed Bauer and Rita and, the whole Amanda, Lucille Wexler stories. But I think for me, too, because of the age, it was, the Four Musketeers that, probably sucked my soul into the show. And I never stopped watching, basically, from probably that moment. And probably because I was able to watch it when I came home from school more frequently.
Yes.
When you're younger, you weren't able to. So, remembering Ed and Holly and Roger and all that, I do remember all that, but I don't know that I was as sucked in at that moment. Brett, for you?
It was the masquerade ball when Beverly McKenzie joined the show.
Oh.
I remember I probably was 13 or 14 at the time, and I think I was playing hooky from school, trying to get out of gym class probably, and it was that event specifically that drew me in, and her entrance to the show. And I remember Lou Jack, I think, was also sort of coming into the story at that point as well. So that was the big thing for me. And then shortly after, it was the mystery of Annabelle and Tony's cottage that really, I think, sucked me in. Definitely.
I should add Lou Jack as a fifth musketeer, because
I loved him.
Absolutely, for me, and with you, Brett, Beverly, I mean, Jacarius just asked me who my favorite GL couple, and I mean, there's many, but it probably does go, as much as I loved Beth and Philip at the beginning, because it was the four musketeers and Beth and Philip and Bradley and Lillian and that whole thing. I think Beth and Lou Jack really got me, because when you're a kid and a teenager and your hormones probably, I think Beth and Lou Jack were it. Jilly, for you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's, yeah, right. Oh, well, I'm the senior here. I watched all the half-hour black and whites, and Guiding Light included, growing up. I think Roger and Holly grabbed me, and I realized that, I mean, they're as dark as the story was, them as actors, and I am always the opposite of everyone else. I always liked I never latched onto a mystery or a big story. I always liked the sort of the psychological whatever, or the addiction stories, of course. So Roger and Holly, and then as a grown-up or a young, like a college-age person, right before I came to the studio, I really loved the the 89. I liked Grant, Beth Chamberlain, Kim Sims, the Mindy, Roger, Alex triangle, and that particular time period. I remember loving those recasts, which is not always the case, but I love Kim Sims and Beth Chamberlain, Liz Kiefer, those people who were that made me latch onto the show as in my early 20s. Anyway, but early on, the black and whites, Roger, Holly. So anyway, yeah.
Who, walking in the door, were you, well, you were all 222 East 44th, right? That was the first place.
Yes.
For me, and I'll go back to Beth for a minute. When Beth was blinded in that explosion that Philip did, the New York Daily News did a story on Guiding Light, a publicity story that I would have done many years later.
Right.
But they did a story because Guiding Light worked with a local New York City blind school, because they had real life blind actors or folks included in the story, and they included the 221 West 26th Street address of where Guiding Light filmed, and that really was my introduction to getting on a bus from New Jersey, going to hang outside the studio.
Oh, wow.
So fun.
Meeting Beverly McKinsey and Larry Gates and Bill Rorick and Greg Beecroft and Jay Hammer.
And at your young age, what that was, meeting like Beverly and Larry and
I'm sure I don't remember. I had my camera. I was thrilled, but it was really, and Jilly reminded me, but I made two very lifelong friends standing outside that Guiding Light studio. My friend Debbie, who is my age, and we both fell in love with Guiding Light. And there was a couple, Bob and Diana, who drove up they live in Clearwater, Florida, and we met, and they really became like second parents to me. I'm incredibly close with their entire family. Diana has since passed on, which breaks my heart, but it's here we are, what Guiding Light introduced to all of our lives. We can't even count, I think, the ways that it truly what it did for all of us.
Yeah, I would agree. It's so funny. When I was in the production office, which is where I started, we used to talk with fans all the time, because we would have, maybe 4 or 5 regulars who would call in. And one of those fans was from Texas. Her name was Virginia Cagle. And, you know, I talked to her so many times. I actually continued talking with her after I left the show. And she too, unfortunately, has passed on. But, you know, a great, great person. So sweet. Loved her to death. And, you know, we would talk story all the time.
I remember you would tell us things at Virginia, you know, what she liked and didn't. It was great.
Yes, yes. She was a good meter for what was happening at the time.
So when I started to ask about the address, so 222 East 44th, who do you remember being in awe of meeting first and possibly being frightened of to meet from the cast? You know, not frightened per se of them, but you know, they were bigger than life.
I think it was, the weird thing about it is that when you meet them, for me, I think I met Ken Zimmer the first day, and it's just like I thought of her as Reba, and she was just as nice as Reba. Like it was just, you have this moment of like, oh wait, no, she's like that, and it actually felt super comfortable, and I didn't feel so much starstruck as like at home. Like you get there and you meet these people that you grew up with, and they're there and they're good people, and it just felt like this. It was surreal, but just wonderful. Like I felt like I was coming home in some strange way, and it was great. And it was like, oh, I'm going to do this now. I changed my entire life because I went there.
Right.
I was most intimidated by Paul Rausch, probably.
Was he your first DP, Brett? No.
Yes, he hired me.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I kept picturing you earlier.
I can absolutely see that. I can absolutely.
Well, it's funny because I think over time, as we got to know each other, you know, he had already mellowed, I think, from what he was when he was at Another World, because I'd heard stories about him coming in, and I'd read about him, and you know, he was tough for sure, but probably not as tough as he was back in the day. So there was a softer side to him that, you know, you would get glimpses of here and there. And, you know, years later when I moved to Los Angeles and he was producing Y&R, I met with him and we had lunch, and it was just a really nice experience. And that was the last time I saw him, but he was always really great to me.
I think there was such a sweetness to Paul, like that people you don't know right away, but you see it. And being an assistant means you're dealing with him in a different way, and you're getting his coffee or you're getting his bagel, and you have to get it right. But you have those, you know, you have those moments with him. But I think he always just wanted answers, and he wanted you, if you didn't have the answer, he wanted you to be honest. And that was it. And you learned how to deal with that, and he wanted the show to be great, and I was on board with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally
I got in
agree.
trouble a lot with Paul, but he let me live, so I was always really happy about that. Yeah.
He let me live. Yeah, I definitely, you know, I think I could be intimidated by Paul or not. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, definitely on eggshells when you had to maybe tell him something he didn't necessarily want to hear. But I think out of everybody in my time, I think I was most uncomfortable. It got better, but John Conboy could be a tough one. John Conboy.
Very different style. You wouldn't think so because they're both that larger than life, but different. Yeah.
I never had that experience with John. John actually used to call me Bruce. He could never get my name right. And there was a time in the elevator when, Mark Pinter was there for some reason. He must have been reading for something. And John introduced me to him as Bruce. And I'm like, I can't correct him. So I just went with it.
Good old Bruce.
I would say the person I was most not intimidated by, but starstruck would be Joan Collins. I mean, that was amazing to get to meet her, and she was lovely.
She was lovely. Julie, you didn't, you know, I know you started at the front desk,
which is the best job in the whole world, and you get to know it's a great place to witness life somewhere. And that's how I knew I needed to stay there, because of Betty Ray, and that's not my answer to the starstruck question, but just seeing the people, as Tony just said earlier, he said it's such a decent group, not only talented and beautiful, but decent. And I kind of caught on to that, and I needed a home. And that was, I knew, like Danielle said, you just go, oh, home now. But my starstruck, and I think that I'd give Danielle maybe one guess, but I was at the desk and I looked up and somebody said to me, quiet man got off and he said, Justin D's here to see Jill Phelps.
Yes.
I almost fell backward in my chair. I've been a huge World Turns Margot Tom fan, and I adored him, and used to go see him in theater. And that was probably my most starstruck. And Maureen Garrett is second after that, jumping out of the elevator to give me champagne on her birthday when I was at the front desk. And so that was a big one. But Justin, still to this day, Justin probably.
So if I were to say someone who was on the show, I would say it was Mary Kay Adams, and you introduced me to Mary Kay, Alan. You took me to a photo shoot once.
Oh, nice. Yeah. She was, I mean, I was very lucky, because of that Daily News article, I got to meet so many of these people that I got to work with later in life. So, with some of them, I was really friends for many years before joining, the team. Yeah,
you had a really unique. Do you think that helped you as a publicist to know them as people and know how to help them do that part of the work well?
Yeah, I mean, Julie and I were talking about it. I mean, I used to go to fan events and I wrote and took pictures for the fan club. People watching today, if you have any of those old Springfield journals from the fan club, some of those interviews are by me, and photos by me. And so, it was interesting attending a fan club, helping Robert or Kim or any of the actors. I was sort of acting like a publicist before I knew what a publicist was. And I don't know how that transpired in my head, but it was something that just, I think in some respect, came naturally. So all three of you, not only you worked in production jobs, writing. Was writing, when you entered the building, did you ever think you would write for this show? Whoever wants to go.
I'll do it. No, I didn't think I'd write the show. I thought it was a fun internship I was taking to fill in the other days of my week, because I thought I was going to be a journalist. And I walked in the door thinking, well, this will just be a great way to spend my Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it'll be fun. And the other days I had an internship at Paper Magazine. But by the end, I think the first week, I'm like, oh, maybe this would be something else I could do. I enrolled in a creative writing class. I always wanted to be a writer, but it never occurred to me that I could do this.
Jill?
Go ahead, Jill.
Brett, go ahead.
I did walk in that building wanting to be a writer, and in fact, I wanted to write for Guiding Light since I'd started watching the show. So it literally was a dream come true. I didn't think I would actually get there, but once I was in the building, I thought, okay, I can probably actually accomplish this goal.
And you did.
I did.
And
you all did. Jill?
We all did.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always say, I wish I could find new lyrics. The Nanny, the opening song from The Nanny, where they say about her, she had style, she had flair, she was there. I didn't have the style or flair, but I was there. So
you were such a brilliant writer. I learned everything I know about writing soaps from you. So stop it.
Oh, yeah. No, you didn't. But anyway, no, thank God you did that. But I had no idea that I would end up doing what I was doing. I felt lucky every step of the way. So, yeah, even when the steps seemed backward, it was lucky to be there every day.
Well, one of our fans, Ashley, said, what character do you think developed most during their time on the show? Ooh. And how did you, in particular, develop characters? Brett?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Great question, but
it's a great question, but it's a tough question. anyone else.
I know. Developed while we were like during our run on the show. Oh, wow. Because the writing itself is such a collaborative thing that I don't know if any of us would take responsibility for a particular character.
Yeah, I couldn't take responsibility for.
I mean,
for
I love seeing
developing
all
anyone.
characters grow up, from Mindy and Philip, and seeing them. Ideally, I don't know how to answer.
Wait, I have to share this because I think this is amazing. Freeman Griffin says, and he prefaces it, true story. I was in the hospital on the last day the show aired, and my doctor came in with 10 minutes left, and he watched the last 10 minutes with me before doing his doctoring. I mean, I love that.
Amazing.
Love that. Oh, hey, Jennifer Maloney. Jennifer.
Oh, I'm not seeing anybody, but that's
Jane Jones says, when Jill was last aired, I went to happy hour. This man was crying about the show being over. He had a serious accident in grade school. He watched with his mom every day. He said his mom died again.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I do miss the show being on. It's knowing that it was on, even if I wasn't watching it, there was a comfort to it.
well, I think in general, I think people have that opportunity to get to any daytime show. And I think who said it on the daytime Emmys? Drew Barrymore, about the 5-day a week
5 days.
giving that to the audience, that place to be. And I think that, yeah.
Well,
there's so much comfort and continuity and family, because I think I mean, I don't know how many of you, but we all watched with our moms, or you watch with someone else.
Yes.
So it is that sense of,
yeah.
Well, the one thing, starting the locker room during the pandemic, one of the biggest messages or notes I would get from people who tuned in was how this was reminding them of that connection with their mom, grandmother, friend, whoever they used to watch with or spend that hour with. The locker room was sort of making them think of that. Candace Mack said hello to all of us and said, here we are celebrating Guiding Light, and tomorrow, of course, is our dear Erna Phillips' birthday.
Oh, Erna.
Without Erna, there wouldn't be the four of us here chit-chatting.
Yeah, she had no idea.
Erna.
Yeah, she'd have no idea. And here to say, there are a lot of people. Yeah, there is a destiny that makes us brothers. None goes his way alone. All that we put into the lives of others comes back into his own. There's a lot of people watching us right now. Us. I mean, we're just like them. We are
Well,
fans.
yes, we are them. They are that. This is like yeah.
This is a family reunion. Talk about some of your favorite stories. I mean, that could go on for hours. I know, because it's
while we were writing that, or.
Oh, whatever. You know what? Like, thinking back to like childhood, like I don't know why I remember, it came up recently about spoilers. I think I was talking to Ron Carlivati, and that being, I remember those Friday afternoons and the surprises. Reva backed the car into Vanessa. And my heart stopped, because Vanessa had down those pills and she ran over a pregnant Reva. Like there were just things on those Friday afternoons when we had no idea what was happening.
Oh yeah, Reva jumping off the bridge. Huge.
Yes.
Never saw that coming.
Yes,
that was
absolutely correct.
I would say one of my favorite stories of all time was Alex bringing Roger to the country club to divorce him from her life, her company, the town, if she could. That was pretty much as good as it got.
That was amazing. Well, the early 90s in general, of course, are my favorite time period as a fan, all of it. And Danielle Paige, and perhaps Brett and I have watched episodes from that time, particularly Lauren's death. We're not going to go, but a million times together, and along with Nancy Williams. We've all, that's like a time period that mattered. As a writer, I learned a lot from Abigail's cochlear implant story. It's the first time I had to do a project with an actor so closely. And then, but that was my first realization of a lot of things about the type of storytelling we do, was working with Amy Eklund on that. So
I'd have to say, like, for me, I'm not sure, the period of time that I got to write on the show, we did a lot of things that were kind of outside of my comfort zone. And I think that as a writer, for me, like getting to write clones or ghosts or doing like San Cristobal, all these things that I like that weren't natural to me as a writer were such a big, like, it was such a big leap for me, and it was a big way of figuring out how to write.
And did they help with the current writing you're doing?
Yes, I was not. Jill and I would talk about it, how our natural bent would be to write about the Bowers in the kitchen if we could do that forever, and that would just be it. And for me, having to write anything that was fantasy related was not a natural thing, and now I write books that are all fantasy. So
that's so interesting.
It made me the writer that I am, and I think that Guiding Light did that for all of us.
I remember the first scenes they both wrote, and what made them both so special as writers was their ear and their heart, and their Danielle early on writing added scenes for, say, Billy and Brett. I needed help with something, and Brett saved me and wrote wonderful stuff for India and Philip. And you just heard the voice. That's not something you can you can learn it, but there's got to be something there at the beginning, and they both had it. And it was an amazing thing to see. Yeah.
Well, people behind the scenes were not the only fans of Guiding Light. A number of our cast members, Cynthia Watros, Emmy Ryland, and this beautiful lady, Miss Liz.
I was just going to say,
hello. Wow. Oh, wow. So good to see your face.
Beautiful.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. We're all fangirls.
We really are all fangirls. That is 100% accurate.
Hi.
Yeah.
Accurate. Who introduced you to the show?
Oh gosh, I have a great story about that. It was somebody I went to high school with, and her name was Julie Phillips. She was an actress, and she was 2 years in front of me. And she went off to New York to be an actress. Ooh. And we were like, oh my God. And heard that she got a job on a soap. She's playing a nurse. And it was technically, she got a job on Another World, but I thought it was Guiding Light. Oh. So I started watching Guiding Light when I was in high school, looking for my girlfriend, saying, where is she? And nobody, she's a nurse, never showed up. And I was just like, wow, this is such a good show. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I got totally hooked. Probably 3 months into it, I find out, I'm watching the wrong show. It's really Another World. And so I was like, okay. And so I watched Another World, and I was like, okay, there she is. Okay, that's really great. Let's get back to Guiding Light now. I mean, it was one of those, wow.
Who hooked you in?
Kelly and Morgan. Kelly and Morgan. That whole storyline with Nola and Kelly and Morgan, and I so connected to Morgan. I was like, I was that girl. She's speaking for me, and then all the hospital stuff, the nurse Katie and all of that stuff, and then Ross and Vanessa. Ross, Vanessa, was just like such. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
What was it like when you actually started working with the people you had been watching? What was that like?
Was surreal. That was surreal. Well,
who was the first person you met?
Well, the first person I met, I saw Maureen Garrett in the makeup room, in the makeup chair. And Maureen Garrett and Maeve Kincaid were sitting next to each other getting makeup. I was in the hair room kind of being shown around, and I was like shaking. Yeah. And I saw them and I stopped dead in my tracks. I was like, I can't go in there. I was like, no way, I can't go in there. That's royalty sitting there. I responded completely as a fan, 100%. And then I had to remind myself, like another part of myself came up and said, it's your job to meet them, Liz. Like, please get into that room and say hello. So yeah, that's how Maureen Garrett she embraced me. She was so gracious in the very beginning. It was just,
how soon after you arrived did you admit that you watched to folks?
To Jerry. I admitted it to Jerry because I also had met Michael Zaslow years before, like in early 80s when I worked at a Jan Natarno's video editing service. I was in the front desk, and he came in. We made video tapes for actors, their compilation tapes, and that's where I learned all the editing issues. And I was like, oh, I really love this. And he came in as a client, and I could barely speak then because I had already been a fan. And I remember telling Jerry, I hope he doesn't remember me from that, because I was an idiot. I mean, I couldn't speak. I was just like, it's like, I hope he doesn't remember that that's who I am. I never told him either. Like, I was at the front desk. Like, this is not Blake. Hey, he can't know about me. Anyway, Jerry, I confided in Jerry that I was just, I'd been watching forever. I watched the Holly Roger stuff. I knew everything.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Jerry Hinkle said she watched Vanessa and Ross and said, I can do that.
Yeah. Well, that was the one thing I did because I knew all the characters so well. I mean, I really did. I knew what was going on. I remember having one conversation with Sherry early on when she was leaving, I was coming, because I was cast before she actually left. And I knew more about the history of Ross and everything that she did. I was little. I knew who he was. I knew what had gone on with Holly and Roger and Vanessa, and so I had mad respect. So it was difficult, but then it was actually made it easier because I stepped right into family once I just allowed myself to be in the same room with them. In the beginning, I couldn't. I get that.
I can't imagine. Jill, Brett, myself, Danielle, we watched, loved, and we were in the same room with you, all of you. Yeah. But we did not have to, sit there and act opposite, people I grew up. It's a whole other.
Well, I have to say, if Kelly had been on I don't think I would have been able.
Brett and I can understand that too.
Can you? I was madly in love with him.
But what's funny is I've been watching Dawson's Creek recently with Dana Halber, actually, from Guiding Light. We finally discovered Dawson's Creek.
You never.
So of course John Wesley Shipp is on that show.
Oh, he's so good.
So good.
Oh my gosh.
I
remember thinking, Liz, watching you before I knew, in the early 90s after Maureen's death, when you were in the Bauer kitchen and you were playing with Michelle and there was stuff and you brought so much, I didn't know at the time, but you brought such weight and you just belonged there in a way that I didn't even understand at the time. And as I go back and watch it occasionally, often, whenever, your presence there is brilliant. What I
dare.
Yeah, I wonder, like Liz, you and Cynthia and Emmy Ryland, you must in your head, like you just want to really kick ass.
It has extra weight to it. How can you not? And being in there's so much extra respect for everything. So that's really what it is. It's like, oh no, this is the A game. This is where nobody's phoning this in because you're in the Bauer kitchen. That's yeah. And so I think there's a weight to the history that it's in your. every fan knows it's in your body, it's in your
And
blood.
it's such a tough thing to take over a role like that, and I remember watching you, and it was just so seamless. Like I was, oh, I like her, like that first day.
Yeah.
And there's always that
Yeah,
first
me
day
too.
where you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I missed the other
That was
person. Like, no, this one's good.
That is interesting because there are times where it doesn't,
Right.
happen. It does. It was seamless.
Well,
Because it
so
was
great.
one day and then boom, there you were.
But Jerry, basically he gave permission. Like he held that space for you to just take all your inhibitions and let those fly away. And so he really like gave you, I don't know how to explain it other than it's like I felt like he was the one who said, yes, go, do it. And I remember Jill Phelps seeing me in the hallway when I was first starting, and she just looked at me and she said, just love him.
Oh, wow.
Just love him. And I kind of went, oh, I can do that.
You're like,
That
I already did.
Yeah.
You were like, I already did.
Yeah. It's like, I admired and respected him. So there was all of that. But then it's like, yeah, just love him. Oh, wow. And I understood how Blake loved him. I mean, I understood why Blake would need him and they would need each other because I'd seen the history. So it all made sense to me. And there's not any part of it that didn't make sense. And even with Holly and Blake, I was like, oh, wow, she was amazing too.
Mm.
She was so gracious. I mean, a lot of it's the people open their arms. They wanted you to do well. Not every show wants you to do well. It was like they wanted me to do well. So
they did.
That's true.
The fans were asking, I know there's so many over the years, but is there a favorite on-screen memory of working with Jerry?
Oh.
I don't know. You have to make me cry. Wow, I don't know. A favorite. I do remember getting stuck in the storm in the very beginning, and all that running for Senate and singing on a piano with him. I just loved when he was playful. Although I did go back and watch just the other day when Ross and Blake signed the divorce papers, and I was I'm getting emotional just talking about it now because it's the Jerry. So, oh God, I don't know. He played everything so well. So I loved the comedy and I loved the heart and the honesty. Like he could just, the nuance that he could do was just extraordinary. And he committed himself to everything. Even with the Michael O'Leary, where he had to absolutely spin the beanie, like not see what was in front of him with the twins and when he found Michael in the room.
That's good.
Whatever it was.
Brian Buffington just said my favorite was Liz jumping out of the cake.
Oh, well, jumping out of the cake.
It was Brian Buffington.
Of course, Brian. My favorite too for little. Wow. Yeah. It was fun to do those crazy things because Jerry made you feel so safe. Oh, there was the one about the nuns. We do have that fun scene where he had to give a speech to the nuns. And I was behind the nuns, sitting in a doorway, coming in, trying to distract him with however I could possibly.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
This was good because I was like, I'm gonna see if I can break it. I'm gonna see if I can. And it was a very Blake thing to do. And he had to give this speech to the nuns, and I had to be behind, sitting in a doorway, and I just was basically, having. And he was
That's hilarious.
And for him,
Like a
to
classic movie,
sit on top
sexy
of that,
couple.
nobody plays that stuff better than he does. And I remember one of the camera guys was like, "Okay, now you've made this part your own. You've definitely." This is
Tony
now
just
your
said
part.
he just watched the acting out a sex scene behind the nuns. He just saw it on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I just know that he was just genius at that. And he loved the playfulness of it. Jerry would game for anything. You know, the fantasies, what Danielle, you were talking about, you know, the fantasies on our honeymoon and the pirate fantasies. And oh my God. Which was also another thing that I loved in the very beginning. All of Nola's fantasies brought totally brought me into the show.
Lisa Brown.
Me too. I mean, I didn't mention Lisa, but you are absolutely right. Lisa and Kelly as well. I mean, that's you know, I don't know how old I was exactly, but I said the Four Musketeers, but definitely the Kelly Nola. You know, Kevin Bacon. I remember that.
I remember Kevin Bacon. That was the storyline that got me. I came into the show for that, and then everybody else sort of came in around it, but that kept me. The Laurel Falls, all the stuff that would happen in Laurel Falls.
Yeah, it's a shame we really never went back to Laurel Falls, right? I mean.
No, Brad, did we?
Danny and Michelle were at Laurel Falls.
They did. Yeah. But that was
many years later. I'm sure fans, you know, for our writers, you know, being a fan, who did you find it difficult to write for?
Ooh, good question.
Difficult.
Well, because you know, like you're invested so much in that character. Was it difficult to write for somebody you really?
Philip. And Grant is a friend, and I love his work, and that's maybe why, I don't know. Justin, you'd think it would be Justin for me because I was Justin, but he was, the simpler you were with Justin, the better, because you know. But Philip, I think. How about you guys?
I think I had a really hard time with, and Brett loved the ghost story that they did, but I had a hard time with that. That was hard for me. It was more the story than the character that was an issue. Like I loved writing for everybody. It was such it felt like such a chance to get to do those voices, and I don't remember having like a block with anyone. The mob stuff was hard for me too. I think a little bit.
I would agree with that. I think for me, writing Riva was kind of a challenge. And Jill, I don't know if you remember this, but I think there was, when we were doing the special episodes on Wednesdays or Tuesdays or whatever.
Standalone.
Riva and Billy, I think, took a road trip to Tulsa.
And you wrote that script, yes?
I wrote that script, and
it was great.
I guess I really wanted to channel Pam Long as much as I could, because I felt the pressure. Like Riva was such a, you know, huge character for so many years, and I wanted to get her voice right. And in fact, you know, when they went to the high school, I named that Principal Long, and I don't know if anyone ever got that reference.
You did a great job. A lot of scriptwriters got mad at me during those Wednesday being assigned, because for some reason or another it was such a responsibility to take on a show about one or two characters, and I can remember thinking the person would be perfect to write the episode. And you didn't get mad, but you were stressed. I remember that. That was
probably a little stressed, but you know, it actually ended up getting me a job at The Young and the Restless, so you know, it all worked out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I totally forgot about those.
I would say so.
I mean, that's the whole thing, you know, being a fan and then working there. And I'm sure for you, Liz, acting in thousands of episodes, your brain, I can't remember everything.
Oh.
You know, it's impossible.
No.
It was just hard. It was different for when I walked in and it was the people who I knew from history. But as new people came in, I just felt more of a responsibility to carry the torch, you know, just to remain guiding light. And you know, Jerry would always say it's guiding light actors had
the eyes.
It was always and the voices. It was really true. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kevin Riley, I know the answer to this, is asking, do the cast and producers and writers think we dropped the ball when Michael was diagnosed with ALS? And I will, I think everybody, it definitely was a mistake. I mean, the show could have handled it better. It was, it was just an unfortunate situation that
there was a story plan. As we all know, it's not one person's decision in those situations, but there was a story that could have been written and executed that would have given him, it would have been a great story, not only for him and for Holly, but for Blake. There was a story to be told, but it didn't get told.
Yeah.
That's
sad.
Anyone?
Yeah. No, it's true. I think when life happens in the middle, it's not like, we might have had more time if we were like a primetime show where you're not on the air during it. It's like,
right.
The show is, we never stopped. So it is difficult. Fear. And I'm not making an excuse.
There probably, there's so much involved with a decision like that. If you let the fear take over, then,
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of story that Guiding Light did really so well historically. They could have done such an amazing job.
That's what I used to say. For God's sakes, people, the gold statues, I can see them in your hands right now. Really, it would have been.
Yeah. I just remember people, we really wanted it. So I'm sorry it didn't happen.
Yeah, with Bert Bauer, right? They wrote her.
Cancer. Yep.
It started with her. Yeah, with her pap smear.
We do that really well. Guiding Light does that very well when we choose to.
And even the Tina's.
The breast cancer. Yeah. The amount of response for Tina's breast cancer. Tim Hayden was asking.
Illness and stories based in a real life situation. We kind of backed away, not Guiding Light, but I mean in general, and I think that was a huge mistake. But
yeah.
Tim Hayden was asking, did any of you three write any part of the clone story?
Sure.
No,
I didn't get to.
Yeah.
I was a writer's assistant then. You got to.
Oh, sure. You know what? I was a part of that story. I was horrified. It went against everything that I understood. I didn't know. But the actors, this is what the Guiding Light actors do. Their game, I can tell them, and they are not going to let something fail on their. I mean, if they not only, Robert, Laura, everyone involved in the show and the canvas with her, Kim Zimmer. I didn't want to do that story. Kim Zimmer, by the end, when that clone died, I cried.
Holly.
She was amazing. Yeah.
She's the humanity, she did was there a scene where Dolly and Reva because Dolly had no memories, no connections, nobody cared whether she was there, and Kim, it was written well, not by me, by Barbara or whoever wrote that, and Kim, it was one of the best things ever on the show, a clone, and she was amazing. Anyway,
Liz, was there something coming in the door and being a fan, was there something that surprised you most?
Surprised me most. Like in a good way or in a bad way?
It could be either. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. It was so wonderful. What a family it was, because honestly, Guiding Light had a different culture than all the rest of the other shows, and I'd been on several of them, so it's from personal experience. And the culture of Guiding Light was just like I think so. Of course, it wasn't about like any detail on the show or anything like that. It was about, wow, these are all family people who are really invested in having a wonderful life, and they happen to act.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was very different from, a lot of what I had experienced as a young actor in on the other side of the country. It's like, it was so focused on like, I have to act and maybe I'll have a life,
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'll have a life outside of it. And So honestly, I'm going to say that, like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it doesn't surprise me because it's why I was attracted to it. It's why that was the one show I wanted to watch. Even while I was on other shows, I would still be like devoted Guiding Light fan. So
I think that's for everybody. It's about family. Mary Behrens Oni says, Bert was my role model for raising my children. I think so many of us watched Guiding Light because of whichever family you loved,
yeah.
or all of them combined were an extension to all of us of family.
And I think the actors, like Tina took me into, I lived in Tina's apartment for like 3 months after 9/11 because mine was I lived on Wall Street.
Right.
I mean, everyone really walked the walk. It wasn't just like you're pretending to be a family.
We were never homeless. Yeah.
And that is what I mean by like all these people are just like, it was just so rich and nourishing. And I went, oh, I like this. This, I want to be surrounded. I want to be surrounded by these people. And then Jerry was the leader of it all,
Yeah.
So that was
also, we were safe to have our fights and have our bad days. It was a safe place. I never found a place where I could have an argument with someone and then, that's fine, and get through it and go on. And it was such a safe place to be whoever you were. It was amazing.
I agree.
And I was talking about, being a fan and standing outside, and Jerry was somebody I met very early on. Yeah. And just before his passing, I started scanning photos from back then, negatives, and found one of him and one of his little boys and had sent it to him. So he was thrilled to have it. But that was the hard part of coming to work there. Like I started August of 97, and Jay Hammer was one of the people I had met as a fan and was friends with. And, shortly after arriving, they let Jay go. And that's the hardest, and then they brought Mary Kay back and let her go. And then Jerry, these people who, it became more difficult for people like us who were not just employees, but so, physically invested in, who this show was as a whole. Mm-hmm. And Jerry, and Jay, were a part of that show. They were a part of the fabric.
Yeah. And it's why it had that energy. It's why it attracted people like me when I was a teenager.
Yes.
I agree.
That was a very tricky thing about working in production. You often had to know things you didn't want to know before they became public or were even known to the person whose life was going to change so much. And that was a real struggle always, but particularly at the beginning, confidentiality and just integrity and dealing with the losses.
The TPTB, as everyone knows, the powers that be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, March 31st of 2009, I was at dinner in Hell's Kitchen, New York, when I got the phone call that Guiding Light would be canceled.
March 31st?
I did.
Wow.
And I was signing a lease on April 1st, 2009 for a new apartment with my husband to be. And we were sitting at dinner and he said, you know what, we love the apartment. We're still going to do it. But do you all remember where you were on April 1st?
I remember I was driving and I got a phone call from Helen. And our makeup artist, Helen, who's, she was our mama. And she called me and she said, are you driving? And I said, yes. And she said, can you pull over?
Ooh.
And I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh my God, who died? And she's like, well, no. And she said, we've just been canceled. And that's Guiding Light. Like she wanted to make sure that I heard this
in a gentle way.
Yeah, because we were very close, and she has passed, and so it was. She wanted me to hear from the spokesperson from CB or whatever it was supposed to be, or my agent or whatever. So yeah, I remember. I was going to a health food store. I can't go to that health food store to this day. I can't. I'm like, no, I'm on that one. I don't like that route. I just can't do it.
What about the rest of you?
I wasn't writing at the time, so I think Jilly, I think you called me. I think you.
Did I call you?
But I think so. Yeah.
Probably did. Yeah. Brett, where were you? You were already in LA.
I was already in LA. I have no clue where I was. I don't remember.
No, I don't even know if I could. Yeah, I saw you that summer before you came out to visit before the show, right before the show finished tape.
I was with you.
That, right. But
toward the end.
I did call them. Yeah. I was, of course, in the rehearsal hall where you get the call from the whole company to come down to rehearsal hall. And I, had been working every day with Ellen Wheeler in her apartment, working, and I had no idea. There was no leak to me, nothing at all. And I was standing next to David Kreisman and Pat Gentile, P&G, Pat Gentile was there. And you go, what? No. And I just remember looking at a crew person, a friend of my husband, of Tony's and mine, Andy Capuano, and he's standing and he's just looking down, and the weight of seeing him, actually, I really shouldn't talk about it too much, it's just looking around. But Dave, I remember Dave, we hadn't seen much of each other in the last year, and I think one of us took the other one's arm, and you just, there you go.
The rehearsal hall was a place for a lot of things, some very, very happy memories. Sadly, it was where Jerry, I think, shared his first cancer diagnosis for the first time.
Oh,
I think with Jill Phelps, I think he told
in the rehearsal hall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember he had an official one with all the cast in the fourth floor. I remember the long table. Everybody was called in where he announced it. But
yeah. I mean, Monday is one of our favorite Springfield holidays. It's 4th of July. Does any? I mean, the fans were asking if we had a favorite one. I mean, there are so many. Anybody have a favorite?
I'm curious what you guys think. Yeah, what was
I think I do too.
I don't know if I do. What's
I don't know that I can remember them all.
Right.
Go ahead, Brett. I'm eager to hear.
I think my favorite was the year that Alan Michael parachuted in.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That was very cool.
Carl Ty Evans.
Go ahead.
Carl Ty Evans.
That's right. Yep. He was such a cutie. What about you, Locher?
I don't know, but that's a good. That just had a lot of people. That one, Brett. That is a good one. I mean, because some of them didn't really always have enough Bowers or Philip and Rick but that really, I think Fletcher and Maeve were there, and there were a lot of people at that.
Mine will be an unpopular choice, but I love the last one, and I loved it for a simple. And she's on screen. Because we had the chance. There was story happening. Olivia and Natalia, different. I mean, there was things happening, and there was two parts to this really quick. Kim Zimmer was written in her own story, and she was very upset about that because she wanted to be at the barbecue, and I can't say I blame her. But I do love her in that episode with her dad when they're watching the baseball game. And he said, and the national anthem comes on, and he said, "Stand up, sister." And she puts her hand in, and Dad is there, Hawk is there with her. I love that, and I loved giving the reins over to Liz Kiefer, Michael O'Leary, and Grant Alexander when they were trying to, because Michael, of course, Rick Bauer is not planning this barbecue. He's not bought anything. He just invited a bunch of people to take care of it and probably fill up to pay for it. And we kind of threw a little dialogue, but these three actors were so great. And then also Michael O'Leary when he had mustard on his lip and he already got hit with there were all kinds of things with Michael O'Leary. But the three, the Liz, Grant, Mikey, they just got the idea of the scene and they took it. And they just kept, and those are my favorite things in general.
Sweet.
And so I love that.
Yeah. That was nice to be. Yeah, I do remember that.
You were very funny.
That was nice. God, Grant and Michael. Jeez Louise.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, it's just so wonderful. And I do, and also we're like siblings that, all of us love Jerry so much too. It's almost like we're his children and his, yeah, it's a nice bond.
It absolutely. I mean, that is, and to think, we talk about it, what guiding light connected us all to, but you look at, let's just look at, Mikey and Grant, who were children and have remained the greatest of friends for all these decades because of a show that brought them together,
There are a number of those friendships, a lot of them, whatever actors.
But I mean, that's one of,
famous. Yeah.
Well, I don't even mean famous, but that's truly one of those longest ones of, and they were such kids, so, it's not always easy that kids will,
they're a good yin, whatever.
Yeah, they have each other's back.
They're very different.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But you can really feel that they have each other's back. It's really,
always.
It's great.
Mm.
Yeah.
Would you love to, sadly it won't be, I wish I could say it would be revisited, but if there was that ever hope, we all would love it, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
In what form? You mean a serial?
Yeah, it's something. Springfield lives on somewhere.
Honestly, I'd love to have some scenes with Grant right now. I
would
really would.
I
think it would be a whole other level.
Yes. Yeah. I would kind of like beginning, middle, end, either like movie or limited, like bring it back, like do something like that in a very
arcs, maybe.
Yeah, arcs, small sort. Yeah, or movie, holiday, something. Or I'd love to be able to have the chance to see people that, like Liz mentions, Grant, people you love to see together that you didn't get a chance to see as much as you would have wanted to. So there are stories to be written forever. I just call those two over there, and a number of other writers that are, and there are stories that we didn't get to tell. But I love
Green Garrett.
Oh,
Green Garrett.
Yeah.
I wish, even if everyone can't do it yet, it would be cool if they could do a podcast or like a radio play or something to start, and then do something, a movie or something. It'd be just so cool to start with maybe the audio form, since that's how good
too.
Good voices on that show, so that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk for hours. Thank you, all of you. Adam just wrote and reminded that he's looking forward, because we will do a daytime Stars and Strikes in October as a tribute to our dear friend Jerry verDorn, and raise money for both cancer and autism this year. So I hope everyone, will join us. I believe it will be October 9th, but stay tuned for there will be official announcement. Jilly, Brett, Danielle, Liz, I love you all.
Love you.
We love you.
Love you too.
Great to see all of you.
This is really nice. Thank you.
This was really, this wasn't work. This was just a lot of fun and a lot of memories. And thank you to this show for bringing us all together.
Thank you to everybody.
Yeah.
Continues to do so.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great 4th of July, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us to celebrate Guiding Light's 70th, which is so hard to believe, TV anniversary. Thank you to Danielle, Brett, Jill, and Liz for joining us today. Please join me next Wednesday when author, artist, and actor Lee J. McCloskey joins me live here. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful 4th of July, and I will see you next week, everybody. Bye.